What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. On this channel, we talk about mental health through pop culture. My name is Captain Nostalgia. I'm a writer and podcaster here with Victims and Villains. I'm also the director of our film festival, Horrific Hope. If you guys would like to submit your nightmares to our screenplay writing contest or bring us your short films or feature films, links are in the descriptions below. And if you have a small business or you just got a couple extra, you just believe in supporting a good cause, consider sponsoring the festival as well. All those links are going to be in the show notes below. But I don't know why I did that. So I am recording this portion of the video about 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, about an hour before my showing. So for those of you guys that don't know, Regal Cinemas have been doing these Mystery Movie Mondays where you buy a ticket for $5. They don't tell you the name of it, who's in it. They don't tell you anything about this movie but the runtime. And I'm going in completely blind. I missed September's. They didn't do one in October, and I'm here to do one for November. As you can see by the title of this, I am going all in on this whole mystery thing. So I have no actual idea what is going to be playing tonight, but I'm going to be coming back here afterwards and sharing my thoughts about the movie and telling you guys what I saw, what it was about, when you guys can see it, and whether or not you guys should see it. So this is normally the part where I'm going to say, cue the theme music. I've just returned. And Regal has made me watch a Christmas movie way earlier than I was originally anticipating. The movie was none other than Spirited, which is coming to Apple TV Plus this weekend. The movie is a Christmas musical starring Will Ferrell, Ryan Reynolds, and Octavia Spencer. The movie is a brand new twist on A Christmas Carol. Now, I am of the sound mind that Christmas Carol is one of those stories that we hear done multiple different times every few years. It seems like it gets like a reboot or a rebranding, and honestly, sometimes that is a little bit disorienting, hearing that same story told almost the exact same way every single time. What I liked about this movie is how refreshing it feels. Like, yes, it is a Christmas story, but it's also not a Christmas story. Like, it has the bones of a Christmas story, and it kind of tells a dual narrative between Ferrell and Reynolds that respects the story of where it came, but boldly kind of seeks out its brand new direction and its own individuality among the thousands of other takes on the classic. I think these characters are really well written too. Like, I think it's really easy to kind of write characters that kind of just say bah humbug and don't like people but don't really give you a reason for it. And I think the duality of the Ryan Reynolds character and the Will Ferrell character of why they are the way that they are and the growth that they have in this movie is absolutely exceptional. Now, that's not to say that if you've seen Will Ferrell movies, clearly by now you know that the man clearly has a signature brand of comedy, as does Ryan Reynolds. And if you've seen Deadpool, then you know how Ryan Reynolds is when it comes to comedy. And this movie's interesting when it comes to comedy because there were people within the theater that would laugh at things that I didn't laugh at, and vice versa. There were some times where I was the only person laughing in the theater. And I know that there's like a hot button like conversation that happens sometimes where people really like Ryan Reynolds because of his charisma and because of his sense of humor. But then on the flip side of that, you have people that just can't stand Will Ferrell for the same exact reasons. And their blend of comedy in this movie is really interesting because it's Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds and it's Will Ferrell being Will Ferrell. There's not really a whole lot of range that they show outside of their normal characters. And with that said, it's really hard to kind of judge the acting of this movie outside of your two leads. Like, everyone else around is really, really good. But it's kind of weird to judge because it's Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds and it's Will Ferrell being Will Ferrell. So I guess the moral of the story is if you like their mannerisms, you're going to like them in this movie. And if you don't like their mannerisms, then this probably isn't the movie for you. I'm a fan of both, and I found myself laughing quite a bit during this movie, which I was kind of honestly surprised about because the last time I saw a Will Ferrell movie in theaters, I really wasn't laughing. And the last Ryan Reynolds movie that I streamed, I really also wasn't laughing. So I think the blend that they have here is really smart. I mean, yes, it does lean into their signature mannerisms, but it's never one way or another. It's a good balance of the two comedy styles. I said I think the two of them have really great chemistry. I also think Octavia Spencer and Will Ferrell have just dynamic chemistry. I really would never have kind of put those two together as potential love interests, but this movie made me really rethink that, and I'm really glad to be proven wrong because they did a great job together. It's not every day that we typically get musicals outside of the Christmas theme or Disney. So the fact that this is really leaning into the whole aspect of musicals and the fact that this is also a meta musical, which makes it really, really smart. I thought that the musical aspect of it was actually not that bad. I really enjoyed some of the songs. I would probably be streaming the soundtrack to this at least a couple times this Christmas. But again, this has got to be a movie that you have to be a fan of musicals in order to really appreciate this movie. It's not like we have a few songs kind of sprinkled throughout. No, like this is a musical. There's no getting around it. The two biggest problems this movie has is its runtime and its CGI. I've said it on this channel so many times, and I will continue saying it until it stops being true. I, as a cinephile, will always love a long movie if the film and the narrative and everything that is going on within the scope of the movie can absolutely hold my attention. I think some movies deserve to be longer, and vice versa. I think that some longer movies deserve to be shorter to have a little bit more tighter narratives, or maybe there's a lot of sequences that don't really belong in there. Tar's a great example of that. And this movie, because there's a dual narrative that is kind of being shined, while yes, the comedy aspect of it is balanced, the narrative kind of suffers because it seems like there are times where it's focusing too much on the Will Ferrell character when it needs to focus on Reynolds and vice versa. While I did like and enjoy the aspects of the Will Ferrell, Octavia Spencer romance subplot in this movie, it really didn't belong. It didn't add or bring anything new to the story. And I thought that had this movie not had that, maybe it could have been better. But it's part of the charm of the film. So while I will say that it really doesn't bring anything, I'm really conflicted because I liked it, but it doesn't bring anything new. The CGI of this movie is absolutely painful to watch. I wish I had another word to describe it, but that is literally the only thing that I could do. And I feel like this is probably the cinephile in me speaking, but every time there would be certain sequences, and there were like set pieces that it was the most obvious at sometimes. Like the office for where the spirits gather outside of Christmas Day is just a painful, like, it is just ugly to look at the set. There are parts like in the flashback of Christmas Spirit where they're trying to show Ryan Reynolds his past, and it just looks like they deep faked him. I don't feel like I can say that because I just literally watched Just Friends yesterday. So I saw 2005 Ryan Reynolds, what he looks like, and watching 2022 Ryan Reynolds and knowing what he looks like it just looks like they watched old Ryan Reynolds movies and just tried to like deep fake his face. It's a very bizarre choice. And for all I know, I could be wrong. I don't know anything about visual effects, but it is, and again, it doesn't really take anything away from it, but it does kind of, uh, if you notice it, it kind of is, it's hard to ignore. All in all, Spirited is actually a really charming film. I think that this has the potential to be a future Christmas classic for this generation. It's got great song numbers. It has a great cast attached to it. Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds are really funny together. But let's go ahead and run this through a Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give Spirited a 3.5 out of 5. Like I said, I think this movie is really funny. I think it does a lot of smart choices, but some of its narrative drags on a bit too much, and the CGI is just, it's a little bit too wonky to not to notice. I feel like it's a little bit too early to be talking about Christmas movies, but what the heck, since we're already here, comment below and let me know what your favorite Christmas movie is. What's a movie that you watch every year? And yes, for the sake of argument, we will also say that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. But let's talk about mental health. If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we take a theme of mental health out of the film which we're talking about in hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. In the movie, there is a term that the spirits use called unredeemable, which basically means that there are candidates that they will perform the Christmas Carol-esque haunt on, and they'll kind of study them out for the year. And there are some people that they just say are just too far gone. It's revealed in the film that at one point before he became a spirit, when he was a human, Will Ferrell's character actually was considered a unredeemable, and the first unredeemable to ever actually be redeemed. So much of his emotional conflict throughout the film is kind of forgiving himself and understanding that his identity is not the past sins that he has committed. And that really sounds familiar, because I think sometimes when it comes to our own mental health, we have a tendency to identify and make our depression or our suicidal tendencies or our self-harm or our alcoholism, we have a tendency to make those our identity. And just like Will Ferrell kind of learning throughout the course of this film in his character journey, I think that it's a reminder for us as viewers and as people watching this right now that we are not our own mental health issues. We are so much more than that. That's not our identity. There is so much more that you have to offer. You are so much more than your depression. You are so much more than your suicidal fantasies. You are so much more than your addiction. You're so much more than XYZ, whatever the worst thing about you you think is. You are so much more than that. And we've built institutes. We've discovered and created medicine. We've put practices in place so that we can rise above such things and take identities up and say that this is a part of me, but I'm taking steps to better this part of me so that I can be better. And I hope that anyone watching this right now, that if you're going through something along those lines, that you do discover help, that you do reach out and do click the links in the show notes below to check out our mental health resource library. There are so many resources readily available to us, whether you have insurance or not. Whether even if it's something as simple as education and just knowing better that you're not alone and that you're not the only person that feels this way, even when you feel like it. There is hope, and you're not alone. And you're not the worst thing that you've ever done. And I think it's especially crucial to be reminded of that at this time of year. So I hope that is an encouragement to you. You guys can check out Spirited when it hits Apple TV Plus this Friday, November 11th. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Make sure that you guys hit the subscribe button below and click the bell icon. Have a good night. We'll be back later in the week to talk about more movies.